Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Brownlee, and I'm the Managing Director of Westminster Builds. Um, I want to talk to you about the company, Westminster Builds, and in particular, one of the schemes it's going to deliver. Westminster Builds is a new property company launched by Westminster City Council. It is a wholly owned local authority company and originally designed to support the council in the delivery of its own ambitious development programme of 2,000 new homes by 2023. It was started so that it could deliver and maintain intermediate housing, which a council is not able to hold outside of a local authority company. That was the origin. The company is already delivering a couple of schemes within Westminster. Luton Street, which is part of our ambitious Church Street regeneration area. Harrow Road in the north of the borough, where the company is delivering not only housing, both affordable and for sale housing, it is also delivering a nursery and a really lovely new public realm in Harrow Road, and of course Ebury, which I'm going to say a little bit more about in this presentation. Being part of Westminster means we are aligned completely with Westminster values, and we deliver to an incredibly high spec, are aiming for carbon neutrality at all times, and I'll talk a lot about that on the Ebury scheme, and that we build to a really high specification. We've got a great team, a development team that started life being put together as Westminster Development Team and is now seconded to work for the company as well as deliver for the council. Highly experienced, really diverse and broad range of development staff who are directly employed. And I would say one of the best teams I've ever had the pleasure and honour of working with. Now, what I want to talk to you about is Ebury. Ebury is a 750 home development, new retail, new public squares and community facilities, completely mixed tenure blind and very sustainable new regeneration scheme. It's on the site of an old council estate, which will see the density of that estate increase from 300 homes to 750 homes. It will provide a really new, safe and secure environment for the residents. And the scheme is bringing significant investment to the area through jobs and opportunities, complementing the transformation which is taking place in that area in Pimlico, right opposite Chelsea Barracks. So it once was quite a small and quite old and slightly sad looking council estate, and it really is going to transform the whole area. And looking opposite Chelsea Barracks itself, that part of London is going to have a massive uplift. Westminster Builds' role in delivering the new scheme is it's acting as both funder, developer, funder, and will finally manage the homes at the end of the scheme. Council homes will go back to the council. Westminster Builds will manage the market rent and will sell and be responsible for selling the market sale homes. And by utilising that mechanism, by using a company to deliver, the council's own company to deliver, it means that in a central London location, in a volatile market, the council itself can maintain control of when and what it sells. If we tried now to bring in a development partner to work with us on the Ebury scheme, we really believe that we would not be able to achieve the level of value that a piece of land opposite Chelsea Barracks should achieve for the council. The market is suffering Brexit, COVID. It's volatile, it's difficult. It's always difficult to crystallise value in Zone 1. And for a council even more difficult, and at the minute almost impossible. So what Westminster Builds can do is act as that developer, but hold the homes as market rent for as long as the council wishes, before selling them on at the right time. This is just a quick look at to show you where Ebury Bridge Estate is. It's very central, as I've said there. You can see on the map, right in the middle of Pimlico, surround Sloane Square, 5 minutes walk away, Victoria Station, 5 minutes up the road. Okay, just sorry, slipped one. I've mentioned that the scheme is going to be a 10-year inclusive neighbourhood that is completely across the whole piece. The blocks will be horizontally tenure mixed. There will be common external block designs and materials, shared external environment and spaces, shared lifts, lobbies, entrance doors, shared cooling and heating systems. It has raised an incredible level of complexity on this development to go to a completely tenure blind solution. This is an estate which backs onto a railway line and fronts onto quite a busy road. Therefore, to meet current building standards, clearly we need heating and cooling systems which operate without opening windows. And we have to find that system which will work as perfectly and as efficiently in a multi-million-pound penthouse, which will be sold, and a council flat, which will be tenanted for life. And we need those to run efficiently and to be maintainable at a cost to both of those tenants, the person who buys and the council tenant who rents. And that's proved a fantastically big challenge for our technical teams. And huge amounts of work has gone into that. And it's a real eye-opener in terms of tenure blind and achieving sustainability, achieving a maintenance program that's affordable to all, but a spec that will sell in central London. You put all those together on one piece of paper and you can see the quality of partners we need to work with to deliver this scheme. So we're working with incredible architects and engineers, and at the end of the day, we'll need incredible constructors to help us build this. Sorry, could you move the slides on for me, please? I seem to have... Thanks. So let's say a little bit about green credentials. We hope that the development will set a new benchmark in the journey to making residential neighbourhoods carbon neutral. The performance of these buildings, in addition to the energy efficiency, heating and cooling systems, has got to appeal to the increasing number of people who want to buy in to carbon neutral estates. That's where we're setting our sights. That's where we're setting our goals. We put that approach to sustainability at the core of every piece of this development. We have water attenuation systems, low energy lighting, residents who will have complete control and understanding of the energy that they use. They will be able to, it will be monitored from a contained unit. Residents will see how every activity that they perform impacts their energy usage and the cost of that energy to them. The scheme is clearly at central London, being designed to eliminate the need for a car. There is access only for some delivery vehicles throughout. So pedestrian priority, fabulous public realm, we'll come on to that in a minute, removing the need for all car parking spaces. And within 12 years of completion, the development will have paid back the embodied carbon used in the delivery of the new buildings. Next slide, please. So I mentioned new public spaces. Here are just some visuals of the new public realm that we will be producing. Really high quality. One of the things that anyone who's been involved in delivering regeneration schemes, I'm sure will have had to face before, is the fact that you get to the end of the scheme and the public realm and your money's running out. So you may have fabulously designed buildings using beautiful materials, but as you go through the long and arduous phases of a public sector regeneration program, very often the budgets get tight. And by the end of it, instead of planting trees, you are planting sticks. And instead of bushes, tiny, tiny little seedlings. So we've made a pledge on this development that we will not get ourselves into that position, and have already set aside a properly large chunk of budget to ensure that at the end of the development, the public realm is of really high quality. Equally, we have some views here. Oh, sorry, can you move on to the next slide, please? We have the apartments at Ebury. They've been designed all dual aspect living spaces, floor to ceiling window system, providing high levels of natural light into living rooms and bedrooms. They've all been designed to be above the London Plan space standards, and 95% of them have private balconies, and those that haven't have got floor to ceiling Juliet balconies. Next slide, please. Meanwhile use. It will take with a fair wind and nothing against us, it will take us 5 years to deliver this scheme. So whilst you are knocking down existing buildings and the estate is covered in hoarding at one end and rubble, and you have still families with children living at the other end, there's a real need to provide some meanwhile use on an estate. So the front of the estate is now, which was a very, very large block of flats, which has since been demolished, is now a new parade of colourful modern shops and offices. It's called Ebury Edge. It's got 11 pop-up shops in it, an event space, 7 COVID secure offices, and it's aimed primarily at startup businesses. And it again, all about creating opportunities for growth, skills and jobs in that area, and to create almost a new high street for the new community living there. It's located next to some of the world's most valuable property, Chelsea Barracks. I have mentioned that, and a short walk from Sloane Square. So retail space in this area is usually well out of reach for smaller local businesses. So what we wanted to develop through Ebury Edge was a focal point for the existing Ebury community and to provide affordable retail units for fledgling startups. And despite the ongoing pandemic and the economic uncertainty, there have been over 100 expressions of interest for one of these spaces, and we're sifting them at the moment, and hopefully we will prioritise a fantastic range of local businesses in that meanwhile use. Next slide, please. So this is all going to be delivered by Westminster Builds. So if you want to find out anything more, either about the Ebury scheme or Westminster Builds itself, then please contact me, and there are my contact details on the end. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. I'm going to give you a brief overview of our Heart of the City scheme in Sheffield, and how in these difficult times we went about delivery and what it might mean for partnership with the construction industry. That's an overview of our scheme. It's a 7-hectare site in the middle of Sheffield city centre. Following the success of Sheffield's original Heart of the City project, we looked at that success and we built onto it to bring forward Heart of the City Phase 2 as a means of delivering a major regeneration scheme that had suffered from market failure that led to the original scheme being delayed by some 14 years. The new fresh approach by the council enabled that market failure to be overcome with a clear delivery plan which is now in place. Phase 1 has been delivered, Phase 2 is being delivered, and Phase 3 is about to be delivered with all the funding in place. This is Phase 1 with HSBC's new office. And this is Phase 2 under construction. You can see the HSBC office in the background there. The issue for Sheffield was not the lack of being able to create an investable real estate product, but the constraints of short-term capital gain over long-term value creation. Despite infrastructure funding from Yorkshire Forward, the then regional development agency, that dealt with the relocation of major infrastructure, the short-term metrics required by the private sector development partner were not achievable due to low rent values not driving up the final gross development value to a point where their profit on cost and/or internal rate of return hurdles could not be met. In 2012, Sheffield City Council's deal with government saw the introduction of a new statutory instrument creating a tax incremental financing zone around the scheme. This TIF funding went a long way to mitigate the lower gross development value, but not far enough. And with the potential for ongoing market failure preventing a regeneration scheme moving forward, the council moved into the development arena itself, using its own borrowing capabilities together with the additional funding source through the TIF scheme to bring forward the critical benefits of 7,000 jobs and an economic contribution of 3.7 billion into the economy measured through to 2030 through this £470 million development project. The gross development values have not really changed, and therefore a development loss is still being created on completion. However, for us, that loss will be recovered over a 40-year time horizon. The business case weighted the social and economic measures over the short-term development metrics. And the outstanding point to note is that the end products are income-producing assets that are attractive to the international investment market. So the greater gain beyond local measures are the long-term returns that deliver for the institutional funds, be that pension funds taking care of our futures, or the ability to attract investment from other funds, creating foreign direct investment opportunity into the United Kingdom. Currently, all occupiers have secured a Dun & Bradstreet 5A1 credit rating, therefore adding to the quality of the investment grade product that is achievable more rapidly without waiting for short-term development metrics to be achieved. Key lettings to HSBC, CMS, Radisson, John Lewis and Partners, and H&M Brands Weekday and Monkey are all top covenant lettings. A fundamental issue with development is the coverage of risk. This risk, as we all know, is what the development profit covers. However, if the output values are not high enough or the input costs are too low, then the development risk margin becomes the issue for viability and projects do not proceed, and the construction industry and supply chain suffer in the process. Where appropriate, being able to accept that risk and fund it over a long period can be the key to unlock development quickly, as is the case for Heart of the City 2 in Sheffield. The role of the development manager is now coming to the fore, and it's a switch that development companies, where they would have taken that risk normally, are now finding a new role in development management. Sheffield, in not having the capacity in pure real estate development or the experience as an organisation, therefore followed a path of securing a private sector partner with that experience and skill set, but with the council taking the development risk balanced over a long time frame. A partner in this case is Queensbury Real Estate. Key was the master plan, which has enabled progress based on securing anchor tenants who are acting as a catalyst, developing confidence and creating demand, and the ability to phase financial commitment on a block-by-block basis rather than be committed to the whole funding package at day one. This has enabled major contracting firms such as BAM, Galliford Try, Hulton, Esch, and Henry Boot to win the construction work that's been available thus far, but more phases are to be released soon. Alongside the construction work is the design team supply chain, with key players such as Arup, Turner and Townsend, Leonard Design Architects, HLM Architects, Field and Clegg Bradley Studios, to name a few. So this method of master plan delivery, with phased risk being managed over the long term, has enabled major regeneration projects to come forward. We have already let one block to the private fund of Angelo Gordon, and this is a New York fund, and they're delivering a PRS scheme in Sheffield, their first PRS scheme in the UK. Some of the remaining phases of the scheme will also be put out to the private sector development market, as it is felt that the particular viability issues affecting the site have now been overcome through the council's development role, heavy lifting and long-term risk apportionment. So ultimately, through the instruments of TIF, the council was able to borrow against future business rate revenues to mitigate the development viability gap, to produce investment-grade real estate, create jobs, and add to the economic growth and prosperity of the country. So in conclusion, I believe we need to see various forms of financial stimulus packages from government for local authorities to help bridge the gap between short-term gain and long-term investment that will assist in economic recovery, rejuvenate and regenerate our towns and cities, and create jobs and foster new skills through putting new forms of public and private partnership at the forefront of moving the United Kingdom forward. I trust that in Sheffield, we've set an example and a new benchmark. Thank you very much.
Thanks for two really interesting presentations. Narlin, I thought I'd come to you first and kind of ask you about, you mentioned a lot about the kind of long-term vision that's required for the project you're working on. So wondering kind of what the impact of the virus had been on that, whether that had really shown the value of it or whether it had changed things at all.
The impact of the virus, actually, I suppose it scared us to begin with, to be perfectly honest, because we'd already embarked on the project. I got involved with it in 2013, actually, so I've been at it for 7 years, and we really got going in 2015. So we were, well committed to over 50% by the time the pandemic arrived. And although we were delivering it and are still planning to deliver the rest of it on a phased basis, the pandemic issue kind of thought, oh, hang on a minute, is the whole world going to, turn upside down? And is what we're doing relevant? But actually, that phased approach is allowing us to roll with market conditions. And what's been really interesting is that most of the occupiers that I mentioned were all deals that were done in the middle of the crisis, which showed the occupier confidence and gave us confidence to actually continue. And we've just in the process of there's both final blocks now have actually received planning consent as of this week. Sorry, hence the hesitation there. Just trying to remember, it's only this week, and so we'll be rolling with those. So, yeah, it caused a little bit of a panic to begin with, but we're moving forward.
All right. Coming to you, Barbara, similar question, whether it's changed the dynamic at all, changed the mentality, or, emphasized things that you already thought were important.
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I think if we're talking about regeneration, it is difficult anyway. It's difficult with a, fair headwind and perfect circumstances, no pandemic, no Brexit. It's difficult. So you put those things in the mix, and it's about as gritty as it gets. On a practical level, COVID has cost local authorities a lot of money. Right. So just on a very practical level, all local authorities up and down the whole country are looking at their balance sheets. They're looking at their commitments. They're looking at, the amount of money they've lost in income from shutting all their sports centres and all their parking income and everything else, which has really affected them, and the amount they've had to spend on running emergency and different types of interventions for older and vulnerable people in their areas. So practically, they have less money. And then everybody looks at the market and thinks, if you're trying to regenerate somewhere like Ebury Bridge in the middle of London, the state of the market's really important. It's probably the council's most valuable piece of real estate. It does not want in any way to dispose of a bit of it in a rocky, volatile, nervous market. It wants to slow things down and, as Nalan said, phase stuff and have the ability to choose when it sells land or sells units, because at the minute is not the time to do it. You throw Croydon into the mix and you've got a real difficult regen situation in the south, certainly, of the country. And I don't know how much Croydon's reverberated in Sheffield. It's reverberating around London a great deal.
Just naturally coming to you, Nalan, what has the impact of the Croydon situation had up in the north?
No, I mean, I'm very familiar with the Croydon situation, and I think for us, particularly in Sheffield, we've still got a big gap to fill in terms of what the city offers, what that city centre offer means to local residents as well as visitors. So there's work to do which is not really affected by what's going on elsewhere. Hence that occupier demand. So despite what's going on, the fact that firms like CMS, John Lewis and Partners, Radisson are committed in the middle of this particular pandemic, for me, it actually shows you that there's still that gap in Sheffield that needs to be filled. So that's also gives us the confidence to move forward. So I fully appreciate what Barbara's talking about, and we're not in the business here of disposing of sites right now, for any price, because it's just the wrong time. But because we are the developer in what we're doing with this work, it's slightly different. And as I said in the presentation, we're taking that long-term view over it.
I wonder, Barbara, you mentioned in terms of timing and the significance of that. What about the importance of a project like this? Is it got greater importance at this juncture? The building has been is already being put forward as a major part of the recovery. How do you see yourself fitting into that?
Oh, hugely, Zach, hugely. I mean, like Nalin, obviously, Ebury Bridge is being delivered through the council's wholly owned company. So, and we're doing that because the people who can hold risk and carry on funding in a downturn or in a volatile market are local authorities. They can hold risk over 100 years. They can hold units and have them at market rent, sub-market rent, sub-market rent, or sell them. And it's their own choice, and they can make those choices every year. And that is the real joy of having a local authority development company. That's, in both Sheffield and Westminster, I think, solidly delivering through those mechanisms. And it is the long-term vision and being able to hold on to things that really matters. I mean, I'd say on Ebury Bridge, I mean, you haven't asked me really specifically about partners, but the partnership on Ebury Bridge with Bouygues started because we stepped in to sustain a development agreement that had fallen in the middle of Westminster because the money had been pulled because the market was wobbly. So maintaining building, maintaining development, maintaining building, maintaining supply chains, maintaining jobs is one of the really positive outcomes from local authority companies. We all learned from 2008, if you let the construction market crash, it takes a long time to bring it back. It's a huge part of GDV, and we need to maintain it. Local authority companies, I think, have a big role in that.
No, I wonder in terms of for the supply chains in Sheffield, how crucial a project like yours is, because they don't come around that often. How important is it to for you to work in that sustained way and continue to guarantee those phases of work?
No, it is really important, and I sort of echo what Barbara was just saying in terms of what local authorities can bring here. We've got that. We have to have that long-term view. We have to have that long-term view on how we are shaping and supporting not just the economy now, but what those economies of the future will be. And therefore, the work we're doing, particularly with the Heart of the City scheme, in generating so many jobs in the construction industry in its initial phases, but also securing long-term jobs. So the HSBC project secured 2,000 jobs in the middle of Sheffield city centre. That's big for Sheffield. That's really big and really important. And by companies like that also nailing their colours to the mast regarding Sheffield city centre, that instills that confidence, and we need confidence at this moment in time. Confidence is a big issue, and that confidence, which started with us starting on the project and picking up something that had stalled for so many years, has really helped to move things forward. And my occasional visits into the city centre, I'm so pleased to see the construction workers supporting those local cafes, supporting the local news agents, supporting that local retail environment as well. So, despite the lockdown scenario, that's all adding to what we're doing, and the apprenticeships that are coming through as well, and the local jobs is really important. So I think local authorities, we've always had a big role to play in this arena, but I think this maybe the importance of what we do is probably highlighted even more just so.
And just a last quick one, Barbara, picking up, you mentioned the partnership you had with Bouygues. Wondering
Yeah.
in terms of like defining that, whether there was a shift from, the transactional nature that can sometimes be established in relationships with construction companies and developers to something that was more of a partnership.
Most definitely. I mean, Bouygues won the work transactionally through a procurement, but they certainly understood us because we'd worked really closely on a joint venture. I've no doubt that improved their bid. It's an exceptional bid. They're a good constructor anyway. But now we have an opportunity as Westminster Builds, as the local authority company, to look for other opportunities with Bouygues outside of Westminster. That is the result of a long-term bit of trust being built up and a partnership developed, definitely.
Brilliant. That's all we have time for. Thank you very much. Really interesting.